Back on the show, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get on my website, shalomklein.com. Follow me on Twitter at shalomklein. I'm excited for our conversation with Joel Gandara, who is a business and life management coach. She has a mantra saying, you get one shot at life, be extraordinary. And I absolutely love that. I've been looking at that over the past few days as I've been getting ready. Joel, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Shalom. My pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. So you have several different ventures, and I want to talk about all of them. You have a lot of advice to share with our listeners, and I want to squeeze as much of it in as possible. But before we do all of that, I want to get to know you and introduce you to our listeners. Joel Gandara, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so came here on a boat fleeing communism when I was 4.5 years old from Cuba and landed in Key West. And that's when I started my life, because now I was in the best country in the world with the biggest opportunities. Grew up in poverty, nothing wrong with that. It made me appreciate now what I have. And I hustled, and that meant selling trading cards, buying chocolates at wholesale and selling them at school, flipping money like that. I bought all my own toys since 4th grade. I paid all my own expenses since I was 16 because my parents couldn't. And that got me just to work really hard. Bought my first house at 22 years old, and I bought a house every year for 5 years after that, and just started investing in real estate. Lost it all in the crash in 2008 and started over. I own apparel companies. I own a fulfillment center for e-commerce sites. And at 39 years old, I got out of the way and I let my teams take over, and I stopped working day to day. And I started practicing like the 4-hour work week and even less than that sometimes. And then after not doing too much other than running marathons and swimming and lifting weights, I started coaching. And I started coaching some amazing entrepreneurs. And that's like my second life now in my mid-40s.
I love it. I love it. And by the way, we skipped one point over here that I have to mention. I understand your dad actually repaired electrical equipment at a radio station. So if Josh over here, producer Josh, has any last minute issues, then Joel, I don't know how much this you've picked up along the way. So it's a fascinating story, Joel.
Especially remote. I'll do what I can.
There you go. Absolutely. No, it's a fascinating story of sort of the American dream and entrepreneurial success. I was, our listeners can't see, but I've been watching your face and you're remembering the time in your short life at the sort of the twists and turns, and I'm watching you sort of recall it, and I see the look on your face that your true passion is right now in empowering others, which is great. So again, we're going to make sure that our listeners know where they can find you and all of the sort of the business consulting and personal coaching and speaking that you do. But Joel, as you do that, tell our listeners a little bit about some of those success stories, the people that you've been able to talk to, and where you and your clients have felt fulfilled and sort of gone in the right direction. Because as I've been saying throughout the show today, it's the true mark of success when you don't just create the success on your own, but you're actually able to enable it for others. Absolutely.
That's what I get a kick out of. You said it right. I've had success, and I own businesses that still do very well, and that's great. But I don't focus on myself anymore, and I find true happiness in exactly that. Not worrying about myself, not worrying about my problems, my success. That's done. I'm good. It's all solid. I love now the challenges of. It's like right now I probably have 9 or 10 clients. So I have like 9 or 10 startups. That's what it feels like. I have these little incubators and they're my clients. They're not startups. A lot of them are very successful. I'll give you one example that you asked for. 2 weeks ago, I went to breakfast with a client and he just looked amazing. He had a tan. He just looked more relaxed than I've ever seen him. And he told me that he's never been this happy. He's never made this much money. He's never all these things. And here's the thing. I knew him for 7 years before I was coaching anyone. And he always had these challenges. And one of them was buying out his partners and taking the business to the next level. In our 4th month of coaching, he bought out the partners. I helped him raise the money. We did all these things. And now he's working, 12 hours a week compared to 70 hours a week, making more money than he ever has. For me, that's success. His kids are super happy. His wife is happy. He's very happy. So that was my most recent success that I got to feel with the client.
I love it. And again, I'm chatting with Joel Gandara. True, amazing success story from coming on a small boat to the United States from Cuba to now coaching and mentoring with so many successful businesses along the way. And Joel, I have to ask, in all of the coaching that you've done, and in fact in the businesses that you've owned and continue to own, what is there a common theme that our listeners should know about that is true regardless of industry and regardless of size? What is that one principle that our listeners can put into practice in the week ahead?
Oh, absolutely. So for me, it's action. It's taking action. I'd rather have a mediocre or even not so great strategy and plan and just take action, because the moment we do something, we can say, was that good? Great, do more of that. Was that bad? No, yeah, that was pretty bad. Okay, we won't do any more of that. But what I find over and over is people tell me, yeah, I've been meaning to do that. I want to do that. I got to do that. Yeah. My question is always, okay, when? Can we do it by the end of day today? Can we put it in the calendar right now, your calendar and my calendar? Because I'm going to check in with you at 5 o'clock and see if you did it. And when we do that, we move the ball down the field so much faster.
Absolutely. And I'm fond of saying that on this program, that I come across entrepreneurs all the time that spend a lot of time budgeting and strategizing and all sorts of things, but then they end up running out of money and they can never actually implement their plans. And it's important to have a budget. It's important to have a strategy. Absolutely. But the main thing is, go ahead, do it, create your strategy, create that budget, and then get out there and make it happen. Again, I'm chatting with Joel Gandara, who certainly implements that mantra of action each and every day. His website, JoelGandara.com. But we've got more with the entrepreneur himself after this very quick break. You're listening to Get Down to Business. Get on my website, ShalomKlein.com. Again, we will be right back with Joel Gandara. Welcome back. I'm chatting with coach, consultant, and speaker Joel Gandara, who's been sharing some of his advice with our listeners after building many multi-million dollar brands and companies, true entrepreneurial success story. But Joel, you mentioned something a couple of minutes ago, which I found fascinating, that I'm sure our entrepreneur listeners want to know more about, and that's how to free up their time, stop working 80 hours a week and still build multi-million dollar brands. Joel, how did you discover that, and what advice would you have for our listeners?
Yeah, I always, and I find this with entrepreneurs all the time, we always think that we are it. I mean, if we can't do it, nobody in the world can. What I've come to discover is I'm not the best at any single thing in the world at all. There's always someone better than me. And if I could hire those people, then they could help me. And maybe one person isn't the best at everything, but I could hire somebody to handle this, whether that's in-house, outsourcing it, finding a company overseas, whatever the thing might be. That's what's enabled me and a lot of my clients to start liberating themselves. It's a little bit of letting go. And that it's more a mental struggle. What I deal with most of the time is mindset. It's asking those questions. And I don't tell my coaching clients what to do. I ask them questions to hopefully make them realize it on their own. Because if it comes from ourselves, it's going to be more powerful. So in this, every situation is completely different. But somebody might tell me, no, I've got to be the one to do this. And I'll question them out of that. Oh, how come? What is it? Explain it to me. Is there anyone on your team who could understand that? And then can we try? Can we do a 15-minute training session with one of your key employees and see if they can handle that? And little by little, we start taking tasks off. And over time, we start realizing, man, this side is much more enjoyable when we're not doing all the nitty gritty in the business. And by the way, here's the other thing. I have more time freedom and I make more money ever since I got out of the way. When I was there grinding and doing 80 hours a week as I did that, I was maybe making a couple $100,000 a year, but what kind of a life is that? How long could I have done that for, right?
Absolutely. And Joel, you strike me as the type of guy that learns something from every experience that you're in. And I love that you've shared sort of that brutally honest piece, that you acknowledge the mistakes that you've made along the way, which is important. So I would be remiss if, as we have this conversation in late 2021, where we're still dealing with the impacts of COVID-19 and the worldwide pandemic, what is that lesson that you've learned for yourself, that you've become better through the pandemic, whether that's personally with you and your family or professionally in your very successful coaching and consulting practice?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I'm a member in entrepreneur organizations. So I go to a lot of learning events. I'm in a forum. I read about a book a week. So I'm looking for nuggets in every single thing that I do. And yeah, COVID was a great one. I got to learn a lot from friends who acted really quickly and made several $1 million selling PPE, masks and gowns and alcohol and all these things. So that was a great learning lesson, seeing people I'm very close with who share financials, and I get to see that and see how they've crushed it. For me, it was a great time having my 4 kids and my wife, and we were all here all the time, and we got to work out and be together. So those were great lessons. We learn more from failures, and for us, COVID was not a failure. It was I own e-commerce sites. I own 14 different Shopify Plus sites. It's all apparel that we sell, and I own a fulfillment center. Those all did great because COVID was great for us, for sales online. So I didn't have a big failure during that time to learn. I'm looking to learn all the time, and I hope to learn from others' mistakes first.
Awesome. Well, on that note, definitely, I've learned a lot from our conversation. I want to make sure our listeners know where they can get in touch with you, Joel Gandara. How can people get in contact?
Sure. So I have a newsletter. I send one email every 3 months. That's it. And there's no funnel. There's no sales. I don't do this because I need the money. I do it because I'm having a blast. And it's joelgandara.com, JoelGandara.com. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm all that. It's just Joel Gandara.
Well, I encourage everybody to get in touch with you. So thank you so much, Joel. I appreciate you and your time, and I look forward to having you back on real soon. That's a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business. Check out our sponsors, Tom Marabali from healthplanchicago.com. Get on my website, shalomklein.com, and be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share our podcasts. To success, let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560 The Answer.